Hello again, 8th graders. This is chapter 6.5a. It is a lesson on finding the percent of increase. This should be a review of a lesson we had in 7th grade. The percent of change, whether it's an increase or a decrease, is the percent that a quantity increases or decreases from the original amount. Now, if you remember when we talked about percent times whole equals part, a whole can be an original amount. To do these problems, you are really going to need to do two steps. First of all, you will subtract to find the amount of change. Be careful, sometimes you'll need a label. Then you need to set up and solve an equation where we take the original amount, that's our whole, times n, which is going to end up being the percent, and that will equal the amount of the change, which, if you recall from earlier lessons, is really a part. Let's look at our first example, example A. Find the percent of increase to the nearest tenth of a percent. So you are going to have to watch directions carefully. If we go from 85 to 120, well, it's easy to see that this is percent of increase because you're getting bigger. You've gone from 85 to 120. The first step is the subtraction step. Yes, you have to show this. Hopefully, you can do it without a calculator. 35. Now remember that that is going to be our amount of change, otherwise known as the part. Now in step 2, we are going to set up the equation. This first number listed is your original amount. It's always the first number listed. When you're reading a story problem, you're going to have to be very careful to catch which is the original amount. The original amount times n, which is the percent I do not know, is going to equal my part, which is the amount of change, 35. Now you know from lessons in the past, what do you have here, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, you have a one-step multiplication equation. We are going to divide both sides by 85. Yes, you're going to use a calculator. I would strongly recommend that you use your percent key. So we're going to put in 35, divide by 85, second function key, percent key, equals. Now you need to round it off to the nearest tenth. In this case, it's going to be 41.2%. Let's move on to example B, where this time we have a story problem in words. The first U.S. Census, that's the counting of the population of the country, was taken in 1790 and yielded a population of 3,929,200. In 2000, the population was 281,421,906. Find the percent of increase to the nearest tenth, following directions carefully, of a percent. All right, what's my original amount here? Well, that would be the first census. This was the first census, so this is going to be the original amount. I am going to take, in step 1, the 281,421,906 and subtract the 3,929,200. 6 minus 0 is 6. 0 minus 0 is 0. 9 minus 2 is 7, comma. Now you're going to have to do some regrouping. Eleven minus 9 is 2. 11 minus 2 is 9. 13 minus 9 is 4. 10 minus 7, 3 is 7. 7 minus 0 is 7. 2 minus 0 is 7. Or is 2 rather. Get stuck in a rut there. Now, what we're talking about is population. This is a word problem. You need a label. We don't say 277,492,706 population. No, what are we counting? We're counting people. So our label here is going to be people. Now we need to do step 2. Yes, this is where you're going to use a calculator. Because we're going to take 3,929,200 n equals 277,492,706. And you are going to divide both sides by 3,929,200. Using that calculator, aren't you glad you had one? You are going to get a big percent. Not a mistake here, folks. Yes, 7,062.3% increase from 1790 to 2000. Example C is another example with words. Now this one can be a little tricky because it says 7 pounds 5 ounces at birth, 5 months later, 13 pounds 9 ounces. What do I do with the fact that I've got pounds and ounces? Well, the one thing you can do is use a fraction and use your fraction key. That's why it's on the calculator. Now here's where you got to remember something that some of you had trouble with in chapter 5. 1 pound equals how many ounces? 16. Last chapter, some of you thought it wasn't 16. So we are going to take the new amount, which is 13 and 9/16 minus 7 pounds and 7 and 5/16 pounds, and we are going to subtract. When we do that, we are going to get 6. This is going to be 4 over 16. Remember that when we subtract fractions, we just subtract their numerators, but we have to have the common denominator of 16, which we do here. That means 16 and 1/4 pounds. Now, we are going to take the original weight, which is 7 and 5/16 times n, and that's going to equal 6 and 1/4. We're going to write what's known as a complex fraction, dividing both sides by 7 and 5/16. N is approximately. And this is where you got to use that fraction key. So you're going to hit 6, fraction key, 1, fraction key, 4, divide by 7, fraction key, 5, fraction key, 16, second function key, percent key, equals 85.5%. Okay, what if you say, hey, I just really don't like the fraction key? Good, that's all right. Then change everything to ounces. But here again, you got to remember that there's 16 ounces in a pound. So you're going to take 7 times 16, which is going to equal 112. Then you have to add the 5, so we get 117 ounces. In 13 pounds, we're going to take 13 times 16, which is going to equal 208 plus 9, and that's going to give us 217 ounces. Now I have to do step 1. Subtract 217 minus 117. Yay, don't need a calculator. 100 ounces. Step 2. Probably going to use the calculator. 117N equals 100. Divide both sides by 117. N is going to equal approximately, again, you're going to get 85.5%. Remember, this is the one where you go 100, divide by 117, second function key, percent key, equals. At this point, you hit pause and try D, because it's very much like what you're used to seeing in B. I hope you got sample D correct. When you're finished with this lesson, reply to me with the code word Star Wars 1. Scouting out.